this? I really don't understand it.
What the hell is wrong with y'all? You ain't that damn good. Stop acting like it.
Some ineffectual, privileged, effete, soft penis debutante.
Stop right there. Stop.
We think it amazing.
Yes. The summer is here. Can anyone beat this Pat Cummins bloke? I mean, it seems like he constantly comes in with the bat and bats our team rather, on the way to a win, despite, believe it or not, being a pretty handy bowler. Now, throughout the week, there was an Oz A, India A game, and we were hoping to get a clearer picture as to whether it will be Constance, Bancroft, or Harris. So tell me, why is it Nathan McSweeney? In the world of sport, another week of the NFL passes by and a couple of NBA games, if they matter yet. And that Max guy won the race thing today, or yesterday. And there was a small horse race yesterday as well. Today, even. I'm all over the shop. Anyway, with more to come, we dial into the necessary cricket news needed for you guys for the upcoming Big Bash season, as well as other cricket bits. Nathan, what the hell is that?
It's an Iron Man mask I had from kindergarten. It still fits me head now. So there you go. This is pretty cool. I took this off. Hang on. Oh, there we go. All right. Anyway, yes, it's good to be here. It is good to record. Look, it's been an interesting week of sport, I must say. There's a lot's happened actually. You had the F1, obviously. That was a crazy old race when you have five DMPs, a black flag, a red flag, yellow flag, all sorts of flags. As many flags you usually get in a Kansas City Chiefs football game. Speaking of which, they didn't pull a flag on a false start from the Chiefs, which, it did help them win today, but, who cares? They're 8-0. They'll be 17-0. They'll win the Super Bowl. It doesn't matter.
Seems like an unnecessary drive-by, but, it's fine.
Oh, every drive-by is necessary.
Well, yeah.
Oh, what a way to start. Now, I think we're making this segment permanent, but do I do story time regularly?
Yeah, we can make story time regular. Do you have something?
Okay. Well, now I better find. Let me go into Lad Bible. All my stories come from Lad Bible. It's my only source of information on the internet.
It's the only
Make of that what you will.
resource.
Oh, ain't that the truth? Now, why can't I find the story here? Oh, well, I think you're just getting the headline this week. Anyway, man caused. This is in the Great Britain, of course. A man caused a massive flood of 14,000 acres just to stop his wife from coming home so he could keep partying. Now, I mean, take all measures in that regard, right? Like, you got to keep your bender going as long as you possibly can. And I think, how would I word this? I think every man would do this in the exact situation personally. Personally, I think everyone would do that because, with an at all cost mentality, you gotta extend the bender. And for a massive flood of 14,000 acres, water goes away at some point. People are worrying about there not being enough water in the world. So there you go. There'll be plenty of water from that. Just saying. You got to pick a lane.
Yeah. There you go. That's story time for this week. We'll move on quickly. A bit of Big Bash news that we'll start off with. That's sort of doing the circuits. It was probably a day or two after we recorded last week. Jacob Bethel was brought into England's Test squad for round one, which was, I guess, new news, along with Ben Duckett and Ollie Pope. Nathan, how does this affect the Renegades lineup, and is there a sort of similar guy you're looking at, or is there a similar guy the Renegades rather are going to bring in?
Well, yeah, this is interesting. So obviously, anyone playing in that England Test series is out round one. So you've got no Jacob Bethel, you've got no Ben Duckett, no Ollie Pope. They're not going to play round one. Duckett and Bethel are annoying blows because they're playing doubles now. Bethel in his projected role wasn't really going to be all that super coach relevant. Being the sixth bowler and batting at number 5 is not great. Now, what this does mean is that there's another batting spot that opens up. throw into that some news we'll get to soon on Will Sutherland, and I think we're getting closer to having another basement price batsman debut in the form of Harry Dixon, who I believe I spoke about last week.
Mm,
He hasn't been making waves in domestic cricket, which probably doesn't help him, but we're getting to the point where he's almost next man up. If so, in any case, I think Mackenzie Harvey probably plays. I haven't
yep.
looked at their lineup in depth enough, but that would be my guess based on what we've got here. Um, Anyone I'm looking at particularly, I mean, it was going to be Will Sutherland, but again, the news that we'll get to him on him shortly means that it probably isn't him. It's probably, yeah, I don't know who it would be. Hey, Fraser McGurk doesn't change for me. I think it's just like someone like Fergus O'Neill almost certainly plays now.
Yeah, I think we had him or Gurinder Sandhu, I think, battling out for a spot last week in our mini projections, and almost certainly both of them will probably be playing. Rashad Hussain out for the BBL. Tell us more about that, mate.
Yeah, so he is playing in the Bangladesh Premier League, which runs at a similar time. Um, but he won't be released from that. So that was the problem. He'd been drafted, but he wasn't released from his duties in the Bangladesh Premier League. And of course, that takes precedence because he's from Bangladesh over the Big Bash. Therefore, he can't go out to Australia. This report hasn't been officially confirmed, but it's been reported by Crickbuzz and some other sources as well. So we're going to go with that for now. Um, yeah, I don't know what they're looking at vis-a-vis a replacement. I mean, right now you're probably looking at someone. Um, you're probably looking at a Mitch Owen having to come in and bat at 7, and you put Jordan at 8, and you rely on Nikhil Chowdhury a bit more with the ball, which
Mm,
is not really a bad thing. He was pretty solid for them last year, I would have
yeah,
thought.
definitely.
It of course that makes Chowdhury himself a very interesting option, batting in the top 6 and being what I would describe as probably uh, I mean, bowling 4 overs more often than not. Probably the not the first spinner, the second spinner rather. Only problem's the price. Would you be tempted by Chowdhury with that sort of role?
Yeah, I definitely think so. It depends on what Hobart want to do. I guess they do have Paddy Dooley and Peter Hatzeglu on their team. Uh, I would guess it'll be interesting to see what they do with their team in terms of. I mean, they play majority of their games obviously in Hobart. I don't know. I would have thought that only playing one of those two would be beneficial, and then Chowdhury as well. So Chowdhury probably is a pretty good option, I imagine.
He's certainly rising in Supercoach stocks right now. I just think when we look at some all rounders, I think there's going to be a spot where you can go with an all rounder from any team. Not necessarily like just look for the best role possible outside of Matt Shaw, Glenn Maxwell.
Mm,
Look for the best role possible because there's a few knocking about there. Like your Jack Edwards is in that conversation. You've got Chowdhury that's just joined the conversation, and Sutherland until I believe the next bit of news, which is that Will Sutherland has a side strain. He did
mm.
it playing in the Shield match for Victoria. Now, I suppose I'm putting you on the spot here, but the implications for the Renegades lineup's pretty big because you've got he's probably batting 6 or 7, and he would be bowling 4 overs. So if he's not playing, and if he's playing as a batsman only, that has massive implications. And if he's not playing at all, it's even worse. So, how do you see this?
Uh, yeah, it's certainly interesting. Obviously, I'm not sure we have a time frame on that on his injury yet.
Well, the reference is sort of touch and go for round 1
Sure.
for bowling.
Um, yeah, so I imagine both Fergus O'Neill and Gurinder Sandhu will play. as we stated earlier on, it's interesting. He was one of their better bowlers. He was probably one of their best last year.
Mm.
It is interesting because he plays that pivotal role and he's now the captain, or would have been the captain, depending on how he goes. I think it's a bit weird because his role specifically is so important to the team, but I guess it can also be semi replaceable. They'll have bringing in another batter with obviously Jacob Bethel being out, and that probably goes to Mackenzie Harvey. I want to say. I know you say Harry Dixon, but they might
It's
both get a
probably
go at this
McKen.
rate.
They might both get a go, but I think I agree with him. Harvey's probably ahead.
They might even go six batters straight off the top. I don't know exactly
Yeah.
what they'll do, but I think the implications are obviously you wouldn't have him in, but I'm not sure you then go at excitement with anyone else in the team. I think is how
Uh
I'd wrap that up.
yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at the Renegades batters in their squad right now. So you've got Josh Brown, Tim Seifert, Jake Fraser McGurk. That's probably your top three. At number four, you'd have um what was his name? Sorry, Laurie Evans, of course. And then number five, you probably chuck Mackenzie Harvey in there. And
Mm,
then six, John O'Wells. And then, well, this is where it gets interesting. You're going to play five outright bowls.
yeah, it'd be interesting to see how they make it up. Obviously, I think Fergus O'Neill played pretty well in that Oz A game, which we'll get to later. And then there's
Hmm.
Richardson, Zampa, Gurinder Sandhu. Maybe Nathan Lyon gets a gig by the looks of it. That first
Well,
game. Oh, will he be playing? Whoops. So there will be someone else. That's a misjudgment and a half. There'll be someone else they'll have to bring in to cover that role, I guess.
it's going to be, yeah, it's going to be tough to replace, like, because they don't really have another all rounder like that. Like, that's how
Well,
integral.
they've got four bowlers for round one by the looks of it.
Well, you got Fergus O'Neill, Gurinder Sandhu, Kane Richardson, Adam
Adam Zampa,
Zampa, and Tom Rogers. So there you got five, but
Tom Rogers.
you'd be
Missed that.
banning Tom Rogers at seven.
Yeah, and that's concerning.
That's a bit shallow. Like he's a more than capable number. He's a capable number eight, but I think number seven's a bit high for him. And then on the flip side, if you play Dixon and Mackenzie Harvey, you're a bowler down. So I think they're going to have to find some all rounder somewhere as a local replacement player, but which they could do because you've got Nathan Lyon, so you could get a local replacement player for the whole season. But I don't know who it would be, but they need an all rounder. Anyway, we could probably what's next on the agenda in terms of um the news.
Big Bash news. Mark Steckety, still injured out with an ankle. Obviously, we talked about last week how the Stars have a bit of a depleted pace attack. Obviously, depending on the timeline, Nath, how does that affect the Stars? I guess bowling attack. Obviously, we talked about last week how it'll probably be Steckety, Paris, and I forgot who else we said last week, but those two are probably the
Curran.
spearheads, and Curran. So those, I say spearheads. Those are just the pacemen.
Mm.
What does this? What does that pace attack look like after, depending on whether Stack plays round one or not?
Yeah, let me see. Like if Mark Stickety's not playing for the Stars, I mean your first problem is you're down to two pacemen out like
Mm.
and that probably means you know what, Marcus Stoinis, you're gonna have to pull your finger out and bowl. Now 84,000, like that's exciting for starters. Because he's a capable with the new ball, he's capable with the death at the death, so he would be used immediately. I think he'll be bowling a fair bit more than he usually would this summer, personally. Um, But as a whole, like you've got currently the lineup is Sam Harper and Tom Rogers because Ben Duckett's out round one. Bo Webster, Glenn Maxwell, Marcus Stoinis, Hilton Cartwright, Tom Curran, Usama Mir's in a bit of doubt for round one. I will clarify that whilst we're chatting, but Usama Mir's in a bit of doubt, and then you've got Joel Paris. Hamish McKenzie's almost certain to play now, just with that
Mm.
lineup. Uh, and they could put in another batsman, I suppose. You've got Scott Bowen who'll be on test duty, we'd suspect. Um, and then the batting department, in terms of spare batsmen, you're looking at guys like Campbell Callaway. Well, he's your primary spare batsman, so he probably gets a game too. There's a few ways they could go with this lineup, but Mark Steckity being out, that's not gonna that's a big blow for them because they need a pacer, and
There is
he's
Brody Couch, who I
oh yeah,
could be an option just to from our projected lineup at least, just to pick and
fresh
swap.
off a hat
I'd say
trick.
yes, he is.
Mm.
Our sort of last point we've got is that Overton's bowling in the warm up of England ODIs versus the Windies. Good signs for Overton for the Big Bash, no?
I think oh it is, but like it doesn't tell you much. Like when we say it was bowling, it was light bowling. Apparently, it was just keeping the cobwebs out. Like he's not 100% still. Um, Otherwise he'd be playing because he'd be able to bowl. You know,
Mm.
but it's just a step in the right direction. I'd say he will bowl at some stage this Big Bash. I don't know how early on in the piece he bowls though.
Mm.
Could be halfway through that we see him bowling, but or at least a full allotment of overs. I don't know is really the answer. Um, we talked about it a fair bit last week, so we won't revisit that. But it's it's concerning for the strikers if he's not fit to bowl.
Yeah, definitely. There's a bit of an interesting pace bowling situation happening over at the Strikers, which we'll dig into at some point, I think. Uh, Australia A played India A a couple of days ago, and they wrapped that game up. We sort of hoping as viewers to get a bit of a clearer idea on who will open versus India, and the Border Gavaskar Trophy come the 22nd of November, rather. Uh, I guess I'll just ask you, Nath, who do you think's top of the audition charts at the moment?
It's hard to look past McSweeney, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
it's youth, it's Queensland. It's neighbouring Marnus Labuschagne in terms of technique and style. He's not quite as the what's the right word? Nerdy, obsessed run scorer that or cricket fiend maybe that Marnus is, but he's a leader. The kid's like it's a bit high praise, but the kid's got Test captain written all over him. He's South Australia captain. Sorry, he was Australia A captain. Um, he's just a natural leader, and he scores bulk runs. The only flaw in him is that he bats four and doesn't actually open like the other three do. But
Mm.
I think there's been a lot of people saying that he can handle opening the batting for Australia. He's got the technique. He's good enough, and he needs to be backed. And I think he will be. I would have enjoyed it being Conscious, and I think he will get a game at some point in the next 12 months. But for now, I think it's hard to look past the form, the leadership, and it's brave to say, but the long term outlook of Nathan McSweeney is very promising. He's not as raw as Sam Constas. He's not as scarred either as Marcus Harris and Cam Bancroft.
Mm.
He's the he's if for those that are familiar with Islamic culture, he's He's the perfect pure virgin that Muhammad speaks about. That's the reward for Islam's in heaven. It's flawless.
I'm not sure I agree with you to that degree, but I definitely agree with you. Um, I think McSweeney is definitely in the box seat. He was the top scorer for Australia across, I guess, both innings. Obviously, Sam Constas ducking the first off 3 balls and then 16 off 33 in the second. He was a bit disappointing. Obviously, he had that Shield game earlier in the season with back-to-back tons. And I think had he produced a bit more in this game, he'd be right in the box seat. However, the way he sort of went about it, and not that we have any idea what we're talking about, but it didn't look all that great. Again, like you said, looked raw. And there's nothing wrong with that, but someone like a McSweeney looked incredibly solid, especially in that first innings, considering where we were at in the game. Obviously, he then led us home alongside Bo Webster in the second innings, and I think that really spoke volumes about it and sort of helped that in that second innings he was able to take Australia home and Constas, Harris, Bancroft all got out. Harris scored 36 and then 16 for both Constas and Bancroft, but I think that really helped McSweeney's case. He's also got the backing of one David Warner and I believe Ricky Ponting, as from what I saw in the news across the
Yeah,
week.
as the great cricketer said, it's the Pope's kiss
Mm.
on from Ricky Ponting. I think they used the more correct terminology, but I can't remember what it was. But yeah, it was something like the Pope's kiss from Ricky Ponting, which seals McSweeney's fate as
Mm.
Australia's next Test opener.
I think it's probably about some of the highest praise you can get when you get the approval from the one Ricky Ponting.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
if Ricky Ponting says you're ready, you're ready.
you'd certainly hope so. We'll move on to sort of bowling situation. And this probably more applies to our Big Bash than our upcoming Test summer. Uh, First of all, we'll get to Jordan Buckingham, who had a side strain during the second innings, which resulted in him only bowling 10 overs. Number 24 off his 10 overs. Um, we did refer earlier to the strikers sort of bowling situation, and we'll, I guess, quickly pivot back to more Big Bash related stuff. What does that look like for the striker's pace bowling attack, especially when he was probably in more of a box seat than some of the other paces for a spot in the striker's starting 11? And then what didn't help his case was Brendan Doggett in the first innings rather, got six for.
Yeah. So I think that he was definitely spoken about as being in that side for the Adelaide Strikers. He was spoken as though he would be bowling alongside Henry Thornton as the two primary quicks. But that's obviously not, well, actually, not obviously. That could still pan out. He's in doubt for round one. Now, what does this mean? It means you probably don't pick him in your initial team, but the beauty of Jordan Buckingham is his basement price and he has a double round two. So if he plays round one and he looks solid and he's actually bowling 4 overs, then I think you bring him in and you massive downgrade. Like it radicalizes how you approach the cap situation in round two. Now, it's saying that you have a look at this side, Brendan Doggett, he got six for. His problem's never really been the longer format, but the shorter format, he hasn't really outside of one season, maybe 5 years ago, he hasn't really been quite good enough. So he needs to, he might get first crack. It'll be him or Basley, and it'll be dependent on how much they value a number eight that can really bat. I'd be going not Basley. I'd be going Doggett of the two, but I kind of think Buckingham comes straight back in.
Hmm. I
Hmm.
see a world where that happens. I think obviously it just depends on when he's available. Uh, yeah, I think he did bowl quite impressively. I think in that first innings, obviously he picked up 2 for 18 of another 10 overs, so 20 overs for the game. Yeah, we also saw that in the second innings, Ferguson Neal took 4. He looked pretty impressive and has looked pretty impressive so far this year. Couple Shield games under his belt as well. We'll move on to, I guess, yesterday's game, the one day between Australia and Pakistan. Yeah, there was cricket in Australia. The summer started, as I mentioned earlier. uh, it was a relatively mundane first innings. I think Australia or anyone watching the game probably expected that, provided we fielded first, that we'd just roll through them and then bat. However, that isn't quite how the game ended. Although that first innings was a bit slow, I think. Uh, Adam Zampa, he bowled pretty well. He was a little expensive at the end, thanks to a bit of a Shaheen Afridi and Nassim Shah rather. I don't even know what you'd call it, slogathon really. 80 odd thousand, 80.1 thousand, I think he is, Nathan. These just great signs for you with Adam Zampa?
I'm not sure what I'm looking for in Adam Zampa. I think if he's fit, you're picking him. But at
Mm,
that price with a double, if he's fit and he's able to play, you're picking him because, like, although the dude's had quiet Big Bash seasons in the past, like it's Adam Zampa, he will take wickets. You'd think he comes away with 3 wickets across 2 games this double. If he can churn out an 80 or 90 point score from him at 80,000 across 2 games, like that's a win. You take it, you go home, and you sell him the extra hour, downgrade him to Buckingham, right? You get
mm,
40 grand. You might get 40 to 50 grand out of doing that. So there's a few. I have few concerns about picking Adam Zampa because I know the class. I'm not really concerned about form because he doesn't really have form, if that makes sense. He just bowls and he gets
mm.
results
Yeah.
always. So as long as Zampa's fit, I'll be picking him.
One of our more consistent bowlers and probably one of our best in white ball as of
Yeah.
recent years.
Is he our best ever white ball bowler? A spinner. White ball spinner, sorry.
Mm. That that's on the spot question. I don't know.
Look,
I'm not really aware of Warren's numbers in the white ball.
I'll get them up here.
We'll answer that question shortly, I guess, while I go over the rest of the game. Australia probably bowled. They did bowl pretty well. Probably took them a bit long to get the innings wrapped up, but Stark bowled real well. He had 3 for 33 off his 10 overs. Cummins 2 for 39 off 9.4, obviously getting that final wicket. Sean Abbott, despite having a bit of a rubbish start in the field with, I think, about 3 misfields in the space of 6 balls, didn't bowl too bad. 1 for 34 off his 8. Aaron Hardy, we saw the fourth option even before Zampa, which I thought was a bit surprising at the time. He only bowled the 4 overs though, had 15 runs come off it, and then there was one from Matt Short that only leaked the 2, and then of course there was always one from Marnus Labuschagne and 3 overs from Glenn Maxwell. Got something for us, eh?
Yeah, well, let's do the comparison between Shane Warne and Adam Zampa in ODIs, shall we? So
Yeah.
Shane Warne played 194 ODIs for 293 wickets. Best figures of 5 for 33 at an average of 25.73. An economy rate of 4.25, strike rate of 36.3. Now, that's going to be tough to remember all those numbers, right?
Yeah.
But I'll do the comparison. So, in terms of strike rate, Adam Zampa's is 30.5 to Shane Warne's 36.3. Okay, so Adam Zampa's got that one. His economy rate is 5.52 in comparison to Shane Warne's 4.25. Now, you could put that down to different eras, which would be fair enough. But for now, let's just give that to Warney. Average of 25.73. Well, for Shane Warne, and for Adam Zampa, his average is 28.13. So again, you could put that down to a different era, but it's in favour of Warney just. Yeah, okay, I'm in the right column. So yeah, then we look at the best figures of 5 for 33 for Shane Warne, 5 for 35 for Adam Zampa, so very similar there. Now, in 104 ODIs, Adam Zampa has 179, sorry, 179 ODI wickets. And then 290 in 194 ODIs, 293 ODI wickets for Warney. Now, I think the records are very similar.
Mm.
I can't split it.
You could almost just pay it out based on the fact that he plays T20s. If you want to say white ball bowler,
Well, I certainly think he's definitely he's without doubt actually our best T20 spinner of all time. Just
I
purely
don't.
because I can't name another one that's been good.
Xavier Doherty.
Nah. There you go. He's probably second.
Cameron
Either that or James Muirhead. Anyway, what a reference. James Muirhead. Or Karen
Yeah,
Boyce. Oh, wow.
Boyce.
Take me back. Um anyway, so back off that, I
We'll
suppose.
move on to Australia's batting innings.
Yeah, there we go.
Uh, I guess I'll quickly sum it up and we can have a couple talking points about it. Both our openers departed pretty quickly, Short and Fraser McGurk. Yeah, that was a bit of a funny little opening stand there. And Smith and Inglis sort of steadied the ship, and then Harris Ralph ripped through us a little bit, taking a spaced out hat trick, I believe it was, over two
Mm.
overs. Getting out Maxwell pretty cheaply, as well as getting out I think it was Smith and Labuschagne, so not a bad little collection for your hat trick there. And then, of course, as I mentioned at the top of the show, Pat Cummins batted us home very calmly as well, may I add. And we just seem to do it time and time again, don't we? It's a bit ridiculous at this point. I mean, I'd rather see anyone else come into bat than him if the game's on the line, to be honest. They needed 2 wickets, Pakistan, and just sit like it. At one point, you're like, oh, we're sort of cooked here. Pakistan are on a roll. They've got momentum. They've got everything in their favour. And then you're like, well, yeah, but Pat Cummins is at the crease, which I'm not sure is something I would have said all that often in the past, considering he's a bowler or about any bowler ever. But I digress. Anyway, I guess for our takeaway from this game would probably be our Big Bash guys didn't do all that well, and I get the batting in this game wasn't the highest class. With I guess Australia, in theory, could have gone on with a bigger total, provided that they batted first, but just over 400 runs in total, and Matt Short got out for 1, Fraser McGurk got out for 16. Inglis was the only real shining light. He did a top score for the Aussies as well, but Aaron Hardy scored 10. Maxwell got out for a duck. Does any of this? I guess it's been one game, so maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But does any of this form scare you, Nath? Do you have any concerns coming out of this? I mean, to me, one in particular, Jake Fraser McGurk looked like he tried to force his innings a heap, and he didn't look like. And again, Rich coming from me, from if you watched a guy like me bat on the weekend, you'd think a lot of negative things, and rightfully so. But it just looked like he sort of forced his innings and he got out unnecessarily. I mean, it's that, and then Matt Short looked a bit uncomfortable at the crease as well. And yeah, how would you sum it up, Nate?
How would I sum it up? Jake Fraser McGurk's out of form.
Mm.
He has not had a good run of it. I'm just trying to find. I'm sure I saw um, some numbers of his recent form. I suppose. I mean, you know what stuff that I'm just going to go with ESPN Quick Info here. Jake Fraser McGurk is a big concern for me because he is owned by nearly 40% of Big Bash Supercoach teams, which I find to be quite high, particularly for what he's been doing lately. Here you go. Let's just look. There you go. Okay, so his last 10 scores. 18 this is in a mixture of T20s and 50 over games, okay? I'm not so just take the scores on their value. 18, 11, 18, 3, 0, 16, 0, 52, 16. Not 50,
Mm.
not 52, 50 then 2, then 16. So he's only gone past 20 once in his last 10 innings.
Mm.
Um Look, I understand that this new flex rule means you've got 12 and you pick it and they pick your best 11. But two bites of the cherry, he'll probably count, and it could still be 30 points if he balls up. If it goes balls up, sorry. So I need to see a change in form from Fraser McGurk. The others I'm not too concerned about because they've got past pedigree, but Fraser McGurk doesn't. Um,
Yeah. I'd agree with you there. I think obviously we saw how well FM performed last season, and I think that's probably what a lot of people are holding their heads on. He's 128,600, which I guess you could see as being expensive considering the amount of cap you have to use for certain players. And he does have the double in round one against the Sixers, who I don't know what you make of their bowling lineup. There's a couple of changes in there, so whether you see that as strong or not is probably up to the eyes of the beholder. And then they play Hobart in uh, in Melbourne for their second game a couple of days later. So there is that. I think I probably agree with you on that front. Maxwell got out pretty disappointingly, I think, watching that. But I do understand your point of being like Scott Maxwell. I mean, we thought Australia were out of the World Cup last year after a couple of games, and then he did what he did against Afghanistan. So I do understand what you mean about past pedigree. And I don't really think there's a whole cause for concern for someone like Matt Short or Glenn Maxwell, maybe even Aaron Hardy. I
or
don't know,
Josh Inglis.
or Josh Inglis, but
Yeah.
I, I, I sort of excluded him from the conversation considering he actually scored 49 or
Oh,
42 as
true.
well.
Yeah. Look,
He's been pretty good
yeah.
internationally, but anyway, we'll move on. What do you want to say?
I look, yeah. I think I can't put into words, so I'll use
Holding
this.
out hope one last time for this guy. Just one last time. I'm holding out hope for his pathetic self.
This is
Is
in
how much,
reference
isn't it?
for Fraser McGurk. Look, he's not pathetic for starters, but I'm willing. I won't write him off just yet. I won't be picking him right now because he hasn't shown anything. But if he
Mm.
starts to show some form, there's going to be a bit of FOMO, fear of missing out for those that aren't aware.
Mm.
Of not picking him because on his day, like he can break it. He can break Supercoach for sure.
There is obviously another two ODIs and then three T20s that accompany that. The second ODI is on Friday, so next week for our show, we'll probably give a gloss over that and some of the scores, and hopefully there's a bit more for the batters to offer us to give a bit of insight and whatnot.
Oh, just
There's
quickly, if you for Patreon, if you subscribe, you will be getting the Supercoach scores from the T20s for every Australian. I don't think there's any Pakistanis. I don't think Asami is playing in it. But if by some miracle he is, his score will be counted as well. But you'll get all of them exclusively on Patreon. So there's even more reason to sign up.
There you go. I'll finish off my point about I say point. The next two ODIs and three T20s come over the next couple of weeks before the Australians take on India on the 22nd November. So there's a fair amount of international cricket for Australia between now and the start of the Test series. That starts on 22nd November.
Yeah.
We'll move on to our sort of last topic, I guess, and this is purely Big Bash Supercoach stuff. I know you, Nathan, wrote in for Honeyball the other day, yesterday, I think, or whenever it was, as part of an article about how to use the flex, getting a bit of more of an idea about it and how to use it properly. I'll hand this segment over to you, really, because I didn't write an article about it. You did. You're the one with the expertise, allegedly, in this area. So I'll let you take the reins. How are we meant to use the flex properly this year?
I mean, look, there's no real right answer yet, is there? Because like we haven't had games of Big Bash cricket to base scores off and apply this, and I think we're not going to get a clear answer until the end of the season. But you know, we got a message from Honeyball. I'm gonna say a few days ago. Um, Myself, and then some guys like back-to-back back-to-back winger. Okay, interest. Okay, Nathan. Back-to-back Super Coach BBL winner Andrew Langley. You know, the main man at Supercoach HQ for Big Bash, Tim Michelle. Max Bryan, who leads the Supercoach Playbook Cricket podcast and writes for them. Oh, there you go. Uh, Nathan Brain from Insight Fantasy Sports, heads up there. A top 10 finisher last year, Andrew Beanak. Someone who contributes to the Supercoach Hub as well as a bit of Honeyball and just all over Twitter. Nathan Scoble, myself, and myself. So yeah, there's a few of us there. We just got asked, um, how do we think? Sorry, I can word this better. Uh, how do we think the flex position can be exploited? Now, there was there was a vast array of opinions, but the common theme amongst all of the opinions was that the VC loop can be exploited in a very different way. So I'll read you exactly what I wrote. Okay, so the flex position, I believe, will radically change how you pick a squad for multiple reasons. For starters, it spreads out how much cash you have to spend per spot, which will immediately have an impact on how strong your round one team can be. Then you have the infinite VC looping opportunities that the flex position brings. Since your round is set up with your best 11 scoring players out of 12, this means you can potentially VC loop without having to cop one of your emergencies in the event that they do poorly. So I think you just sort of get, I ironically, you get more flexibility in terms of how you approach your lineup, how you approach looping. Like, you know, in the past, you'd have to set up a loop with your wicket keeper, and whilst you can still do that, it means you can have 16. Is it 16? No, 17 playing players throughout your squad, and still be able, well, no, 15 playing players throughout your squad and still be able to loop. Um, and that's the beauty of it. I like the flex position itself really just forces you to spread more money out primarily, but then the benefit of it is, for example, let's say I've vice captained. Let's try and make this as realistic as possible. Let's say I vice captained Glenn Maxwell in the first game against Perth, right?
Mm.
He goes off and scores 110 game one. All right, I'm looping that, right?
Yeah.
Well, what I do is I go and bring in, or I go and get my non-playing reserve. I start him in my flex position, captain him, and I just get the starting 11 on the field, and I can still do my loops. So, like, I don't sacrifice a loop. I don't sacrifice a player in my starting 11. I just, I just get, I take the worst player of my 12, which is there's likely to be someone who stinks it up. So, who do you think stinking it up? Who's got the worst outlook this round? You out of your lineup, and you're bringing the non-playing reserve in for your flex. So I just think that it adds a completely different aspect to it, and it opens up super coaches to attack these higher ceilings more.
Yeah, I think, I guess a week from it being released and sort of sending us into a bit of a frenzy, it's sort of, obviously it seems like the consensus is a bit to use and abuse the VC loopholes. But I think that provides Supercoach with a bit more stability, something you see more in the NRL and AFL Supercoach, where you get a bit more consistent scores week per week. And overall, with only 5 reserves, it's a bit tough to do proper VC loops week to week. So I think they've made it a whole lot easier in that regard to carry those out. I think that about wraps it up this week, unless you have any other comments, Nate?
I don't believe I do. Yeah, of course, we're going to be putting out some stuff on the Patreon. Make sure you subscribe. And if you do feel like supporting Supercoach Gardens, no worries. Just subscribe for I think it's 5.50 Australian a month, or $3 US or something like that. Oh, 3.50 US maybe. Anyway, it's small fee. You're going to get good stuff during the season and in the lead up to the season. I think it's worthwhile. I think you'll get how do I word that? I think you get plenty of people who you know will be looking for the information that we put on our Patreon, uh, and I think it'll be very beneficiary. And like the podcast is pretty good. I hope like I don't know what much more there is to say. I mean, we'll be doing some stuff all over social media this year for Supercoach BBL, whether it be for various outlets, I suppose. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in the works that we can't say yet, but I can confirm that we're writing articles for Honeyball again this year, and there'll be some more stuff. Hopefully, there'll be more. But you know, like Supercoach Guns is getting a bit more out there than what they usually would. I think is the premise of it, and you might see us a bit more often than what you'd like potentially, depending on what
Probably.
you think of us. Yeah, probably. Yeah.
No,
Anyway.
it's probably. We obviously the second ODI is on the 8th, which is Friday, and that's at the Gabba, I believe. No, Adelaide Oval, and then we have our final ODI on Sunday in Perth. So I think we'll probably be back again on probably Monday. I'm not. That's nothing concrete there, but we'll review both those ODIs in that pod. I know we'll have some team review stuff out on the Patreon eventually, definitely before the season starts, hopefully. um, and we'll be getting that stuff out as well. Obviously, please like and subscribe. We're trying here. We are, I promise. May not seem like it, but we are trying. I think it's probably looking like Monday next week. We did Tuesday this week to accommodate for the ODI and have a bit more content to put together. But yeah, that about wraps us up. Thanks for listening, watching, whatever you do when you're listening to us degenerates. Just I don't know. What are we doing? What's the point of life?
Well,
Look.
we
That
play
sounds like a
dress
next week
up.
thing.
We play
Well,
dress up, and we talk about stories, and then we get serious for 40 minutes.
yeah. Look,
Even then, even then.
can't say it's all
Anyway,
that serious because we don't really know what we're doing or talking about or anything really. We're just
no,
recording
no
ourselves
rehearsal,
talking. What's
really.
the point?
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll see you next week.